Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It's Wednesday, April 8th. It's Rex Manning Day. It's beautiful outside. So we're going to hop into the bike and pedal up to our comic shop to pick up our new books this week. And then we'll be back here afterwards to chat about stuff we liked from last week and all the stuff that I picked up this week. So let's hit the trails.
Touch me on the face and I'll walk right through you to when we let our anger speak, we lose. Now, day by day you race to the end of we as two screaming. I couldn't survive 'cause I need you. Well, I just want you to know I'm the same without you. I'll be the same without you here. You phone me up just to say I will pay for the souls I've bruised. Take what's left of me with you. Well, I just want you to know I'm the same without you. I'll be the same without you here. I'll be the same without you here. You tell these white lights wrapped around your words. I still sing the same old song. I'll be the same without you, just like you fear. And she said to believe it. I'm glad that you're gone. You made it as easy as hanging up the phone. But before the after and back to the start, no one will love you like I do. I'll be the same without you here. I'll be the same without you here. I'll be the same without you here. While you tell these white lights wrapped around your words, I still sing the same old song. I'll be the same without you, just like you here. I'll be the same without you here. I'll be the same without you.
All right, we are back. Tea is made. And I'm ready to get into it. It was a pretty good bike ride. The only bum out is in that little bike carrier. When I initially, that was when we found out we were having Henry, that was the very first thing that I went out and purchased was that little, because I bike all the time. And so I was like, oh, and my parents had one of those, seats that you strapped on the back, but I'm doing not as crazy with him, obviously, but legit mountain biking. And so I was like, I need something that he can, jumps and rocks and all sorts of stuff. But that means, and when we ride up to the comic book shop, got to protect the books, right? And so I get this thing from BCW. But this thing just absolutely got annihilated today. So I got to order a new one of these. RIP to our old our old comic book carrier. I mean, I suppose I could tape it, because this is the bummer. It's got all these fun little things on it, and I looked a few weeks ago because I knew it was on its last legs, and I looked a few weeks ago, and this style is no longer available, probably because I know comic book fans don't really like the Biff Bang Pow stuff. It's they're very sensitive about it, but it's better than just boring black. I don't know. I think they might make some colored ones. Anyways, you don't care. You don't care. You just want to know what I think about books from last week and what I got this week. So let's get into it. After I take tea. All right, so Daredevil was the book everybody was talking about because it was sealed in little plastic. Mine wasn't. I was smart. I know the game. I know they're just going to dump a bunch of A covers into those blind bags. So I just stuck with picking up the A cover. Because all I care about is a good story and good art. I'm not big on gimmicks. I went through that phase in the 90s. They're pulling me back in now. Anyways, I enjoyed it. That's a ringing endorsement. I enjoyed it. When compared to my enjoyment of the first issue of Frank Miller's run, or Brian Michael Bendis' run, or Mark Waid's run, where does it stack up? Below those. Do I like it as much as I enjoy the television show? No. But as far as a first issue, it was leaps and bounds better than the last volume. So it was nice to have Matt doing Matt Murdock things. I like he's a law professor now. That's an interesting angle. That's cool. Lee Garbet's art is good. Stephanie Phillips has a handle on the character. There's some interesting new characters being introduced in the university. So I was all about that. So I was like, hey, this checks all my Daredevil boxes there. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was worth the... I just looked. It's like, it's $5.99. That's crazy. You know what else I didn't think I love regular floppy comic books, not trades, but I did like the little cardstock cover on this. It felt, but do I want that so that it's $1 more? No, I do not. Another thing that I really liked from last week, not because I enjoy Mary Jane as Venom. I do not. Not because I am deeply engrossed in this death spiral storyline, because it's okay. But there's a character that I have long not been a fan of who met his untimely fate in this issue, and I didn't mind that. And I'm not one to champion characters' deaths or anything like that, but it was a long time overdue. So that was all right. Wonder Man. This was a really fun, does it have vibes of the show? Yes. And the show was great. If you have not watched it, you should. But this was a good follow-up to Duggan's West Coast Avengers run, which was, like a lot of things these days, didn't last much past 10 or 12 issues. But it was still good. And this sort of follows up on a bit of that, and it was an enjoyable read, so I dug that. And then X-Men is not I've been digging Uncanny X-Men. X-Men it's been like middle of the road for me, which is a bummer to say for a top tier X-Men book. But this one was the first part of this, part 3 of this Danger Room arc. And this one was the first one where I was like, man, this feels more X-Men than things have been in the past in this arc. There was a really great Beast moment that I enjoyed. And I enjoyed the ending of it. The one thing that I have is I'm not a big fan of the artist on this. And so another book that I picked up was this Captain Marvel Dark Past, which was all right. I definitely want more of this, but not this sort of felt like the first issue of the century, where it was like, all right, that was good, but I'm already ready for the second issue. And not because I'm like, woohoo, I can't wait to read it, but more because like, now that stuff is written specifically for the trade, it's like this first issue back then would have set up so much, but this is kind of like, a little, when stuff's sort of written for the trade, it's just, my brain isn't wired for that in comics. It's expecting more than that this era of comic book writing gives me. But the reason why I pair these two is Lucas, Wernick, his art, I'm just like, it's kind of a bummer that he's, let's be honest, relegated to a title that is a mini-series of a character that, I don't, comics aren't flying off the shelves unless you're absolute Batmans or whatever, or blind bags or whatever. But I don't think Captain Marvel is like burning up the sales charts. But I think that Lucas Wernick would deserve, I like his art more than the art that's in this X-Men book. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I wish that Marvel was better at doling out the art talent right now, or getting some bigger guns on books that deserve better. And that seems to be my main gripe with current Marvel. But still enjoyed the books, but it is interesting, like especially while I, obviously the videos, Wednesdays I'm doing the new comic videos because it's obviously like we're biking up to the shop, picking up new books. I still get new books, but doing this kind of simultaneously as I do the Cornerbox Classic thing, and I'm in the middle of, am I in 1983 yet? I think, no, I'm still in 1982. I did some more rearranging and put the 60s Silver Age X-Men with the rest of my X-Men stuff, and made one of the spinner racks just the Cornerbox Classic stuff, so I know what's coming. And I put all of the most of the 1983 stuff in that. That's why my head's in the 1983 space. Anyways. So yeah, as I'm going through that, and it's just like a murder's row of great art, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely one of the hang-ups. Anyways, what I picked up this week. So I was talking about that Daredevil issue and how it was better than the previous run, which was written by Saladin Ahmed. Saladin Ahmed is writing this Wolverine series, and I've thoroughly been enjoying it. So, sometimes it's just the character. It's been a really fun, like, this initiative with the X-Men post Krakoa, and I have plenty of thoughts on the Krakoa era, and I don't think of it as glowingly as everyone else does. I enjoyed parts of it, but they definitely, when COVID hit, an editorial stepped in and stretched it out beyond the initial Hickman run. It lost all of its steam. There were so many titles that meandered and floundered, and frankly, the book, like when it started, had a clear, concise Hickman-esque message where I was like, man, if you've read Hickman's Avengers or Hickman's Fantastic Four or Secret Warriors, you know that man has like it outlined to a T. And I was like, can't wait for him to do X-Men. And the pandemic hit, books slowed down. They weren't putting stuff out. It gave them a little bit more time to realize like, hey, this is selling really well, because if X-Men books are good, X-Men fans support them. If X-Men books are bad, we still support them. We just complain a lot. And there were a lot of titles in there that were unnecessary, that added nothing to the story. And it's the typical thing that they just do to that. X-Men needs to be pared down. And I was really hoping that this new initiative would kind of do that. Like, get it, And some of the books have been great. Uncanny X-Men's been really good. This Wolverine series has been really good. But it's definitely not, it's not where I was hoping that it would be. But it's still a fun title. And it's been enjoyable. But I bring this up. Oh, I just saw that Hercules is showing up in this issue. That'll be fun. Wolverine and Hercules. That's weird, but I'm excited about it. I also got the Marvel Previews catalog, because my shop is smart and does not give me the DC. They're like, Sean's not a There's actually a very funny story where I went into my shop one day, and one of the owners was like, "Hey, I got a cool." He had one of the Absolute Batman, like first printings, like an extra of it, and he was like, "You want that?" And like one of the other dudes that works at the shop was like, "Sean doesn't get anything DC." And I passed. I wasn't gonna take that and flip it on the internet like a ding dong. I was gonna let the next person who would show up at the shop that was interested in DC titles get it. But I flipped through this solicitation, and it looks like the next story arc of this Wolverine title is about him possibly getting friggin' bone claws again. It wasn't that awesome the first time, and so as much as I'm enjoying that, when I saw that in the solicitations, when I quickly flipped through it, I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that again. But who knows? That's just a stupid solicitation, and we have no idea what that could possibly mean. The End 2099. Let's hope it is. X-Men 2099 was like one of the first books that I like got into when I got into comics. And so I have a soft spot for this universe. But this like Mephisto pulling in Null thing does nothing for me. Like Spider-Man 2099 was great. X-Men 2099 was great to a certain point. Then they sort of fell apart. But I still get this like little like nostalgia thing when a new 2099 series is announced. And then I read it and I'm like, oh no. And then I realize that I've already pre-ordered all of it because that's how stupid solicitations work. And I'm not going to stiff my shop on the end, even though it has not been interesting. Psylocke Ninja number 4. The last issue I enjoyed more than the previous issues. This is one of those between the raindrops. This happens around Uncanny X-Men 268. And I liked the last issue, but that was mostly because it had some good Jubilee Wolverine stuff in it. I don't know if they're like out of the storyline after the end of that issue. I don't think so. But there's also a good chance that it is. I wish that they would drop doing a bunch of miniseries and focus more on tightening up the main titles and get an actual mission statement for the X-Men moving forward. Mortal Thor number 9. I've been enjoying this. Al Ewing has been doing it. Like, I really enjoyed the Immortal Thor, and I've been enjoying the Mortal Thor because it's been nice to read a book where Thor's like not, I mean, it's only 9 issues into it, right? But it's been an enjoyable 9 issues of having Thor not really know that he's Thor in the overarching arc of this and what happened at the end of the Immortal Thor. So that's kind of been fun, seeing ways for Thor to get himself out of situation with some bad guys that normally he could trounce. But now, because he's, you know, unaware that he is Thor, it's been interesting. Moonstar number 2. Wasn't super into issue number 1, hoping that it gets better. Danny is a character that I love in New Mutants. Was disappointed in some stuff that they did with her in the 90s. They retroactively fixed all of that stuff. But the New Mutants kids, I just feel, and I feel the same way about the Gen X kids, I don't feel like they're given their fair shake, and I wish they would kind of grow, you know? I know it seems to be a thing where, like, and I get it, you know, you spend your life reading comic books, you get an opportunity to write comic books, you want to write the characters that you care about, but I do think that there's a lot of really great X-Men characters that don't get their day in the sun as much as they should. And the New Mutants kids and the Gen X kids definitely fall into that. So I had high hopes for this. And it was a little bit like, just, you know, it's, I feel bad saying this, but it's the kind of like, just the stuff is like, it's okay. It's okay. It's not great. I don't, you know. Black Cat number 9. Series I've really enjoyed. The last few issues, though, with like a team up with Mary Jane, it's kind of dipped for me a little bit. Started out really strong, but kind of going down. And that is not a good sign for these types of books, considering the fact that Marvel is like hell-bent on canceling everything at 10 or 12 issues. So I hope that it carries on. I've been enjoying... G. Willow Wilson, I believe, has been writing this. I dug that, and so that's given me some... Miss Marvel was never it wasn't a title I picked up when it initially came out, but I've kind of been putting the feelers out to track down a complete run of that, because I like G. Willow Wilson's writing on this Black Cat thing, and I like my exposure to Kamala Khan happened mostly in Mark Waid's all new, all different Avengers around like the 2015 time period, and the television show and the Marvels movies, which I enjoyed. So G. Willow Wilson's run on Black Cat is making me retroactively think that maybe I should track down that series. Possibly. Who knows? Uncanny X-Men Annual. I yawned and hid this behind there because I stayed up way too late last night after the little guy went to bed, watching an episode of Deep Space Nine, and then Daredevil, which was awesome, and then ended it, because Daredevil gets me way too jacked up to go to bed, then finished up the Shrinking season, which was excellent. So this, I like annuals. I get bummed that they're not as great as they were back in the day. But I have been enjoying Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men enough, and I know that this kind of ties into a little bit about what was like kind of the B storyline of the last arc of the monster thing in Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men, so I'm looking forward to that. That will definitely be read today. Uncanny X-Men number 726. This starts a new arc. Uncanny has been my favorite of the X-Men books so far, and this is an arc called Who's Been Sleeping in My Bed? Or at least this issue is called that. And looking at that arm and the back view, that looks like a New Mutant character. So, you know, that has me excited. And Nightcrawler is my favorite X-Men character, and he's pretty heavily involved in this. And I say this a lot, but I'm an absolute sucker for like the young generation kids in the X-Men stories. Love the New Mutants. Thrilled when X-Force became a thing. Love Gen X. Loved the new X-Men, like Academy X. Like, I feel like every generation gets their X-Men kids, and these Haven House kids have been it's been fun. I like the way that they were introduced. I know that I rarely put my feelers out there into there's like a good part of the comic book internet, and I like to stay there. And anytime that I accidentally do start to cross over to the scummy part of it, it's a lot of like, these are the worst things ever written, let me, and it's like, it's not that. There are things that could be improved upon, but there's also a lot more good than I think some people are willing to admit. And for me, this has been one of the bright spots. Amazing Spider-Man number 990. Oh man, 10 more issues until 1,000. I'm excited to see where this goes after the last issue in Venom, because of the demise of a particular character. Holy smokes. Tea break. I gotta kill. I did a 20-mile ride with the kid up to the comic book store. Clearly I'm tired. But, it is what it is. So yeah, 7 of 9. So after this, only 2 more issues to go before whatever the storyline is going to be that leads into Amazing Spider-Man number 1,000. A return of the marriage, maybe. MJ no longer being Venom. I'd take any of those things. And last, but certainly not least, the last book that I picked up was Iron Man number 4. This has been, so Fantastic Four, Uncanny X-Men, those have been the 2 books for the past year that I've absolutely loved. And this one, 4 issues into it, I have absolutely been... I've been really impressed with how good this has been. This has probably been my favorite run of Iron Man since the Matt Fraction run around 2008, I believe, is when that came out. It's just been great. It's really like... Iron Man's one of those characters that like the Tony Stark like ruined the character for comic books because every writer wanted to write him like Tony Stark or like Robert Downey Jr. And that's a hard thing to do, to write Robert Downey Jr. if you're not Robert Downey Jr. And so Joshua Williamson has done a really good job of like pulling in the MCU Tony Starkness without losing sight of the comic book character. And I like, what are we, like 15 years now into the MCU or whatever? I couldn't thank a writer enough for understanding that the comic books should influence the films, not the films influencing the comics. And so him staying true to the comic book Tony Stark voice more so than the MCU Tony Stark voice, I am incredibly appreciative of. I love the films. I love the television shows. I am well and capable of separating the two and understanding that they are different things and different universes. One is peanut butter and one is jelly, and I don't want them mixed. That's a horrible analogy because peanut butter and jellies are great. You get what I'm saying. I do not like MCU synergy in my comic books. I'm not a big fan of it. I was actually had to drop one of the bikes off at the bike shop after we did the bike ride because it needed a flat changed and a tune-up and to get ready for the like summer riding season. And my guy who works on my bikes has a bunch of Marvel figures and stuff like that around the shop, and he was like, hey, I've got some stuff that you might be interested in. But it was all MCU figures, and that's just not my jam. Like, I enjoy the movies, but my heart truly lies with the comic books. And so that's a very long-winded way for me to say that I really like Joshua Williamson really has Tony's voice nailed down, and he's not using the movies as a guidepost, but he is most likely using the history of the comic book Tony Stark to find that voice. And I'm here for it, so I will sing its praises all day. So, yeah. I got to go order one of those little binder things so that the books aren't bouncing all around in the bike. I picked up we're going to kick it over to what Sean's been reading when I'm not doing the Cornerbox Classics and I'm not reading new books. I have been reading Kazar the Savage, Bruce Jones, Brent Anderson art from the 80s. I'm trying to catch up so that I can sync it up with the Cornerbox Classics thing that I do. And I've read about the first 8 issues, and it's been great. There was a Kazar series in the 90s by Mark Waid and I believe Andy Kubert, one of the Kubert brothers, but I believe it was Andy. And I really enjoyed it, but it dealt a lot with the fact that, like, Kazar didn't want to be in the Savage Land. He wanted to go back to civilization. And, like, Shauna was kind of like, no. And I didn't realize, like, how much of that is also in that 80s series as well. But it's been really good. And I've been enjoying that. The other thing that I've been trying to do along with that is sort of read any series that I have that wasn't initially pulled in for Cornerbox Classics. Like if I got it after I started reading in the 60s and it sort of passed that. And there's an Inhuman series that I'm slowly getting through, like 1 issue at a time. It's not that big of a deal because it's only like 10 issues. I need to, it's actually right here. I recently finished a run of Supervillain Team Up. So I want to read that in its entirety at some point. At some point, meaning soon. And there is like a Creatures on the Loose or something. Adventure into Fear. Adventure into Fear. And it's the Morbius issues. And I have those issues, never read it. So I was going to read those. But the other day, I was like looking through the 80s newsstand so I could map out how I'm reading everything and looking for anything where I was like, do I not have this? And let me check to see if it would be something that I'd be interested in. And so I found a 75 run lot, like the complete Power Man and Iron Fist from issue 50 to 125, like Luke Cage when it switches over to Power Man and Iron Fist, like that whole thing. And so I was like, that's like really the only title from the 80s, including miniseries and stuff, that I was sort of like kind of a main Marvel title that I was missing in my collection. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I'm going to have a lot of Power Man and Iron Fist to read, because I'm going to try to pull that into Corner Box Classics too. Holy smokes. There we are. So, yeah, I'm excited to read these new comics. It's Rex Manning Day, so I got to watch Empire Records. It's a big deal around our house. And then I will be back this weekend with another Corner Box Classics. It's the end of June, I think June 29th, of 1982. So yeah, thanks for tagging along for this. Let me know if you picked up any of these, if there's any series in here that you're like, I love that series too. I would like to hear it. Yeah, and I hope everybody has a great Wednesday and enjoys their new comics. And I will see you over the weekend with Corner Box Classics. Thanks for taking this ride with us. Bye.